Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound. Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, you are in the meeting now. You are the first participant. Please stand by. This meeting is being recorded. Go ahead. This Town of Adams Board of Selectmen meeting, Wednesday, July 8th, is now in session. If you could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. First item on our agenda is the approval of minutes. Before us, we have minutes from Wednesday, June 10th and Thursday, June 11th. It is my understanding that all members of the board can go ahead and vote on these. What is the board's pleasure?
Madam Chairman, I make a motion we waive the reading of the minutes for June 10, 2020 and June 11, 2020 and vote on as read.
I have a motion by Jim.
Second.
Second by John. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed or an abstention? That is unanimous. One of the things I failed to do at the start of this meeting is how I've started every meeting, and mentioning that this is a remote meeting and that we are conducting it virtually. So this is still pursuant to the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, and his order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town of Adams Board of Selectmen is being conducted via remote participation. Officer Baker, you are able to join us, and there's a chair for you there if you'd like. You're welcome. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort has been made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. Despite our best efforts, if we're not able to provide for real-time access, a recording of this meeting will be available to anyone who wishes to have this meeting. I should note that this is being recorded via Zoom, and members of the Board of Selectmen who are present are myself, Chair Christine Hoyt, Vice Chair Jim Bush, Member Joe Novak, and Member John Duval. Attending over the phone or by Zoom is Legal Counsel Ed St. John III, and we have with us Tom Sacco of the Prudential Committee. Okay. I will just make a note that I did check with code enforcement. I know that the governor has expanded the number of people who are able to gather in one space, but due to the square footage of this room, the maximum number of people who can be present in this room is 10, and that is per code enforcement. So we will be making sure that we stick to the rule of 10 in this room so that we can properly social distance. With all of that, that brings us to public comment, and I do know that there is somebody on the phone who wishes to speak to the Board of Selectmen. So Tom, I'm going to go ahead and call on you and have you give us some information from the Prudential Committee or from the Water District.
Correct. Good evening, everybody. This is an update on the water restrictions the town issued. Just to give you a little history, back on June 29th, the fire district received a letter from DEP that on June 26th, the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs issued a level 2 significant drought for several regions in the state. And this was based on advice from the Massachusetts Drought Management Task Force. And Adams is in the western region. We're in one of the regions that has a level 2 significant drought. About 3/4 of Massachusetts falls under this. So on June 30th, the fire district, in conjunction with the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs, issued a level 2 significant drought along with DEP. And as for conditions of our water withdrawal permit, we had to issue water restrictions. So I can give you some of the water restrictions. I know that out there are water restrictions posted at different websites. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Basically, it's for non-essential outdoor water use. And that's going to be for basically on Mondays are the only day you're going to be able to water. And it's going to be before 9 a.m. in the morning and after 5 at night. During the day, you don't want to water because too much, evaporation from the sun. So some of the other non-essential outdoor water uses are, like watering your lawns, your plants, your trees. You can't use a sprinkler or an irrigation system. And hand watering is allowed, but again, only on Mondays before 9 a.m. and after 5 p.m. No washing of vehicles. You can go to the car wash and get your car washed. And there's no fundraisers for car wash allowed at this time either. No refilling of swimming pools and no washing of like your driveway, your patio, your sidewalks. That's all non-essential. That can't be done right now. Trying to think what else here. Like if you have to wash a vehicle because it's, you can't see out the window, it's all muddy and everything, that's okay. Like, construction vehicles and agricultural vehicles. But again, no exceptions for filling swimming pools. You could wash the outside of your house if you're going to get it painted. That'd be approved. There are some other things that can be approved, but they'd have to be brought before the district, and the Prudential Committee would see if they would allow it or not. And all of this information can be found on the Adams Fire District website, the Adams Fire District Facebook page, and the Adams Fire Department Facebook page, along with the Town of Adams website. You go to there and there'll be a link that you can connect to, and it's called Tips for Saving Water. And it'll give you outdoor water use and indoor water use, of how to save water, not only now during the drought, but basically all year long also. And from that page, you can actually link to the Massachusetts Drought Management website. And that'll tell you the current drought status, the drought regions, just about everything you want to know about droughts. It's a nice website to go to. Like I say, you can link through that, through the link that's on for the water restrictions. Just to let you know, the Drought Management Task Force meeting every week now. In fact, they had a meeting today. I don't know the results of the meeting, but I'm sure the district will know in the next day or two. They'll let us know how it went, whether things are going to be status quo or if, anything's going to change. So that's about it, unless you got any questions.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm Jim Bush.
Yes,
I
Jim.
talked to John Bear, and two of the things that people don't realize are allotment of water per person is 65 gallons per person. And at the present time, we're at 59 gallons per person. And I've had people question me, why can we possibly have a water shortage? It's been raining for 5-6 days. What they don't realize is with COVID-19, there's many more people at home. They're flushing toilets more. They're washing their hands more. The water usage is way up just because of that alone. And they don't think there's a water storage, all you gotta do is take it right up 116 and look at the fire column up there, it's almost dry. So,
Exactly. I mean, for the past couple of months, we're really short on the rainfall. I mean, this year, we're way down on precipitation. And one of the two different things, one, you have surface water, like reservoirs, which can get filled up when it rains. And if it doesn't run off quick from downpours, the rivers will free the reservoir. Where on the Adams, we are groundwater. We take it out of an aquifer. We got 3 wells. And, if they start getting low, it takes a long time for wells to recharge. And like you say, people are using water. That's why if you go to these water saving tips, you're not only for, during the drought, but all year long, like don't let the water run while you brush your teeth, try to do a full load of dishes in the dishwater washer and various tips like that. But, we had the issue of these water restrictions because of our water withdrawal permit that we have. And once there's 2 things that make us issue the restrictions. One, if the state puts level, significant drought on or more, they could go to a level 3. Or the other thing is we also look at the water in the Hoosick River. There's a USGA station off of Grove Ave, and it gives a reading, I think, every 15 minutes every day. And when that gets to a certain point, then we would also, the town, have to issue a drought. Say if for some reason this end of the state was more of a drought than the rest, we would issue a drought just ourselves, the fire district would. But in this case, it came from the state.
Anything else?
Anything else? Yeah, sorry.
Tom, this is John Duvall. I had a question in regards to enforcement. Is this resident self-compliance, or is there any type of enforcement that the Adams Water District uses?
Right now, we're hoping it's self-implied. We don't really want to, find anybody out. We're hoping people real to kind of conserve. I mean, one of the things that, we've been just talking about in the water industry is that water is new gold. And, if you think of places like Detroit and the problems they had, water's a very, item that you don't want to waste. California, look at all the problems they have out there.
Thank you.
Okay. One of the other things I just wanted to mention, there was an article in the Eagle, I think last week, about the droughts and stuff. And one of the things is here, we have to, because of DEP, the Massachusetts Drought Management Task Force. Like I say, they're the one that issued this drought. The other one that they had in the Eagle was the U.S. Drought Monitor, and that's basically the whole country. So you might see a little bit difference between them. But, obviously we have to go by DEP.
I just have a question on the car wash. Is that water recycled, or are they using town water also?
I don't know if the car wash is recycled or not. I mean, they are on town water, but I don't know if they recycle. They are a business, they're paying for it, but right now it's still allowed. But as I said, no fundraiser car washes or washing at home.
Anything else?
Hi, Tom. This is Joe Novak speaking.
Okay, Joe.
Hi. In the town of Adams, I know, as you mentioned, we use aquifers for our water usage. How many aquifers do we have that are used?
This one's up in the Grove, like in the harbor.
Yeah.
And actually, it's the same one that Cheshire's on.
Yep. And
that's where we're getting all the water from right now.
Okay, and is there any way that the aquifer can be measured for loss of water to keep track of the aquifer system? I know there's ways of doing it. I'm not sure what they are, but I know that in order to do so, it's any way of measuring our aquifers?
Yeah, we can measure in the wells. In fact, well 4, we just had it rehabbed last year for, I don't know, around $800,000. and there's all new technology there now, and yes, we measure the water, and it's down a little bit. The aquifer's down. Not a lot to panic yet, but it is down.
And another thing too, we have one in particular, a big water user, being Specialty Minerals. They use millions of gallons a day. No, I'm getting a different, Jim saying that it's different because he should know because he was,
He worked there.
employed there for quite a while. But Jim, do they use an enormous amount of water for their?
Specialty Minerals has their own deep quality.
Yeah, I know that they do, right.
And they use an enormous amount of water.
Right.
It's recycled also.
Yeah, the water is recycled, okay. Because I would think at the car wash, your water couldn't be recycled because there's all like, you know, cleaning fluids that are used and other things. But once again, I concur wholeheartedly with you, Tom, about the value of water. It's a real important commodity because people can't live without clean water. And there is some speculation with a lot of the underdeveloped countries and countries that are polluters that, you know, in reality, a world war could be waged over clean water. So it is, once again, a valuable commodity. So thank you for the update.
Okay, Joe.
All right, if there's nothing else, Tom, thank you very much for bringing that information forward. And as the restrictions continue or change, if you could just keep us all informed.
Yep, we will do that.
Much appreciated.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you. Good night.
Anything else to come before the board under public comment? Nobody else has called in. So with that, we'll just go ahead and move on to new business. The first item of new business is the introduction of interim police chief, or official introduction. I will turn things over to Town Administrator Green.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The day is long awaited, although really I think we moved pretty quick on this. I'm not sure when we finished our interview. I think it was mid-June, give or take. But Chief Bacon arrived in town on Monday. He secured his abode, his residence, and today was his first day on the job. We met with Chief Tarsa for a few hours and had a good conversation. Yesterday we had K-9 Officer Crane. We had a nice public event over at the police station for a nice young lady in town who raised, I think her goal was 200, and yet she raised 2,000 for Kumar K-9. So it was a really nice event. It was nice to see Chief Bacon present. He brought his middle daughter, Noelle, with him, so she was able to see Town Hall. She was able to see the police station, see where Dad was going to work. So I'd like to welcome, I think, on behalf of all of us here in town to our team, welcome Chief Bacon. Thank you. Thank you. So everybody knows Chief Tarsa will not officially retire until Monday at 11:59 p.m. Chief Tarsa and I had a conversation about that yesterday. He remains in command of the department through that time. And then Chairman Hoyt and I will discuss either next Tuesday or Wednesday what we want to do publicly to bring Chief Bacon on as officially the chief. So
Town clerk is ready to swear him in Tuesday morning.
excellent.
Although she's on vacation this week, she did confirm that for me.
So Chief Bacon was kind enough. I thought it was a good evening as we discussed a little bit about our police contract tonight, and just for him to get a sense of how we conduct our business here on the board. We were having a good conversation this afternoon. I took up more of his time as usual, but due to your time. So welcome, Chief Bacon. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And Officer Baker, thank you for being here to represent the department to bring the chief on. I know you're here for other business on the agenda, but appreciate you arranging your schedule to be here at the start of the meeting.
There is some police activity around, but it doesn't have anything to do with this building.
Got it. I appreciate you both clearing that up as well. I was watching that. All right.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Could I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Out of curiosity, your daughter, what did she think? What were her observations of the area?
She loved it. One thing she said, there's a lot of this is why I, applied here, but we really had a good time. We went up to Mount Greylock, and I think one of the things we talked about during my interview was I do State High Point. I've been up there, but she had not, so we went up there, just kind of spent the day in nature. She saw her first porcupine, so that was good. But, no, she loved it, and it was very appreciative of the hospitality that you both showed. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
It's a lot to take in and just like a
Yes.
12-hour visit she had here. So that was pretty good.
And your first restaurant choice? Where you stopped at?
The Angelinas? Yeah.
Don't get any better than that.
I know, I couldn't believe it. I mean, you've had subs before, you had grinders before, but I was thoroughly impressed, and I told my daughter, I said, I'm gonna be in trouble. I've gotta watch it, or I'll keep going back there, I'm trying to lose some weight, so.
He said to me today, boy, it's a good thing the police department has their own gymnasium, because I'll be using it.
Oh, yeah, I'll be in there.
Excellent.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
just,
sir.
briefly, that, Public Safety Subcommittee, I would request that when the chief settles in, 6 months will go by very quickly, that we do, sit down and have this, talk about the agenda with the chair and
Mr. Blanchard is in today, we spoke about that, I asked him to think about topics that he wanted to, that we would get with you. Chief Bacon and I spoke today, in anticipation of that meeting, probably one day next week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So that brings us to ratifications, and Robert is here with us. So DPW Director Robert Tober is with us. Robert, if you want to actually come forward. We did move a table, but that's the phone, so this way, Tom and Ed, who are still on the phone with us, they can hear you. We have in front of us 2 ratifications. The first one is for DPW Working Foreman Highway for Robert Wojcik. I'll read the letter from Town Administrator. Dear Chairman Hoyt, this letter is to advise the Board of Selectmen that subject to the Board's ratification as provided in Section 10 of the Town Charter, Robert Wojcik has been appointed to the position of Working Foreman Highway for the Department of Public Works. Mr. Wojcik has been working as a dependable public works employee for the Town of Adams for 30 years and has stepped in as a backup to the working foreman role as needed on a few occasions during vacations and other leave of the staff members. Mr. Wojcik has proven through his performance of tasks and staff management, his work ethic, and positive attitude that he is ready to move forward into this position to provide the necessary support to the operations supervisor. He will begin this position effective July 13th, 2020, at the working foreman step 3 rate of $23.97 per hour. Respectfully submitted, J.R. Green, Town Administrator. So Robert, I know this is one of the first items, I think, that you started working on when you got here was the job description for this position. It was something that had been in the works prior to your arrival, and then you picked that up. So maybe you want to just talk a little bit about Bobby's work and maybe the interview process.
Sure. So in the time that I've been here, I've worked with Bob in and out here. When Tim has been on vacation or what have you, I've worked closely with Bob. So, and I find his attitude to be fantastic. I think he would be, or is definitely a good leader here, and that he provides that not only now, but for the future as a supplement to Tim, our supervisor, and I have nothing but positive to say about him. As far as this position, we're not changing the number of full-time equivalents in the department, we're just changing the title. And this position here used to be Tim's position. We moved him up to supervisor, and then this left that position open. If you look at any organization, you'll see this kind of structure. We have a supervisor, and then you have 2 working foremen. So I want to emphasize the word working foreman here. So like a supervisor, but also will be working with the crews. And so in that respect, there's more responsibility and a little bit more administrative responsibility also. It also helps Tim relieve him from some of the administrative responsibilities that he has. So it's not really a change as far as what you see in other structures. This is the norm, and we've kind of been behind in that respect. So this will get us on that same plateau that you see in almost any vocational organization. So, but I can't say enough about Bob. He is like I said, a great attitude. He's innovative, he's cooperative, and he's just a great person to work with, so I can't say enough. He's got the experience, he's been here so long, the crew's like it, so, I think he'll probably be a very knowledgeable person.
Jay, do you have anything to add?
Just that this was our first opportunity really for Robert and I to have a good conversation about how we want the DPW to work, what we want it to look like. And just take a minute to look at Robert's letter that he sent me. You'll see that he's hit some really key components, character, positive attitude, conducive to the culture, in line with what we're trying to do with innovative and cohesive team. So Robert looked at this through that lens as he has been all along, and in my time previous to Robert, have worked with Bob too, and I find Bob always, even on a very difficult day, he always has a really good, he puts a nice face on for the town. He handles himself really well, so I think and his hire date is 1987.
So, a long time. Just to piggyback on what Jay said, we also went through a whole process, myself, Jay, and Tim interviewed Bob, and we sat down with him for over an hour and asked him some very enlightening type questions, and he really opened up, so he's a very good candidate. He's a big candidate, so.
Any questions?
Go ahead, Jim.
Just gonna make a motion.
I just had a quick question. Can you distinguish for me the difference between Tim Coda as a supervisor and,
You have parks and cemeteries, which is Steve.
right?
And Bob is strictly the highway, although they can be, intermixed at any point. That's basically the difference. On a line item basis, he oversees the highway and Steve is in the parks and, the cemetery.
So what task or what does the supervisor do?
Well, he oversees the whole operation as well as these two. So it gives him a little break also. Instead of Tim always being on the spot, now he has two foremen as his representative too, because this is a fairly large department. And for what Tim has been doing in the past, this gives him a little bit more room to do administrative. We're getting new responsibilities all the time. For example, we're getting a new payroll system in. That's going to require some more administrative work on his end as well as mine. So this is a requirement too by the state. We're seeing all these requirements for reporting, illicit discharge for catch basins. I mean, the reporting requirements are increasing by so much.
Yeah.
We need some administrative people, and we don't really have anybody in the department that's really qualified. Tim is the best one in terms of that. He has the knowledge. He will need some training administratively from the computer. They don't even have a working computer down there, so it'll be my job to work with him and train him. So we really need that additional person. Tim is going to be taken away from some of that field work now. You just can't avoid it. The state is required to report for everything.
Right.
It's getting more.
I've known Bob for a long time, and everything that was said about him is true. But at this present time, can you tell me the financial situation, how this will affect us financially?
Should have no effect, Joe. This had been on the working foreman position had been kept on the books all this time, so there's no impact to the budget at all. I think the raise increase is by $2, Robert, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
$2 per hour?
Per hour. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's no budgetary impact. The other thing is that we did talk, Joe, while we interviewed Bob, to understand there's a distinction between those two positions. The other thing to keep in mind too, like for this summer, we have so many large capital projects going on. The DPW rep is generally Tim in the field, so he'll meet with those construction teams, et cetera. But at the same time, we have blacktopping, we have vegetation control, et cetera. With the two foreman positions, Tim can disseminate instructions to those two individuals, and then the operations supervisor can go Town Common, Russell Field, some of the Grant Street project, that type of coordinate that. That's also the distinction.
Okay, well, thank you. Clarified my questions.
Anything else?
in step 3 at a rate of $23.97 per hour. I don't think we could get a better person.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by John. Any further discussion?
I would just like Jim to include the date of when he will be in that position.
July 13, 2020.
Motion's
agree.
been amended, and you still second it, thank you.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. It is unanimous. That brings us to the next application, is a seasonal laborer. I believe this is the fifth seasonal laborer, fifth and final. The letter states, Dear Chairman Hoyt, this letter is to advise the Board of Selectmen that subject to the Board's ratification as provided in Section 10 of the Town Charter, I have appointed Brandon Schwarzer, to the position of seasonal laborer for the Department of Public Works. Mr. Schwarzer will report to the DPW to provide vegetation management and other services to the town of Adams. Upon your ratification and the passing of all hiring requirements, Mr. Schwarzer will begin this position effective July 13th, 2020 at the DPW seasonal labor rate of $12.75 per hour. And I will turn things over to Robert again to talk to us about Mr. Schwarzer and the seasonals and how that's going, and so forth.
So, we interviewed Brandon, or I should say Steve interviewed Brandon, and found him to be a qualified applicant. Again, we've been somewhat struggling getting to this level of 5 seasonal workers, in part because of COVID-19, and we have people that are on unemployment, and they're actually making more money, especially with that $600 supplemental payment. So it's been a little bit difficult bringing people in. That's one of the reasons that it's taken so long to get to this level. But Brandon will be a good addition to the seasonal team, and they seem to, I think there will be a good working relationship with the other workers. He's from Adams, graduate of Drury, and looking forward to having join the team.
Anything for Robert?
Yes, just real quickly, this has to do with the hire, but, I heard that, somebody that is gonna be doing vegetation, the Army Corps, as I think I've mentioned to you before, are those banks going to be done along the river?
We're looking at that, and
Right,
that's been a long-term situation,
Right.
as far as I'm concerned, but, from what I've heard, and yet, we have to pick away at that. How many years has it been since, they've really done cleanup there, but we have to get after that.
That's right, because the Army Corps, that was something that if they get light of, that's even, if it doesn't get down to the rocks where it hasn't for, I don't know, probably 50 years, but have some work done along the bank part of it.
I've got some ideas on a process, I think,
Good.
that'll help out in terms of getting that, but also found out that the Army Corps of Engineers being much more cooperative,
Good.
and they've been talking to, I got a call from them, and they've been, we've had a couple of seminars, online, and their whole attitude, I think, is just opening up. They're just being more welcoming of the public, and they want to get involved. And I even hear there's some funding to help out for those situations. So.
I always thought if you had some type of, natural or native vegetation on the bottom area, that, as long as it's nothing, of course, invasive, but it would just, because there's such a large amount of our seasonal help's time by having to do that. Other things seem to fall by the wayside, and the things that I'm very concerned about are our new plantings. Every time we do a project, we have new plantings, and we're behind on them. I mean, you look at the Rotary or all the ones that were just put in for the parking lot, they're weed infested, and, it's nobody's fault because you don't have the manpower, but the more we invest in projects that involve plantings and landscaping, the more that you have to stay on that to make it appealing.
Part of that's innovation, and for instance, we have the trackless machine, which we've restored, and that's going to save us labor time. And so that time that machine is working, those people that normally would be doing it by hand, they can now go and work on these other projects. So that's part of the whole, clue to resolving this puzzle, is being more innovative, using more capital equipment instead of labor, and then.
Plus the ER terminals, Robert, that we bought specifically for flood control too. Yep. We've been trying a combination of mechanization as well.
Jim, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just read that the Army Corps is being dropped by a lot of cities. That's probably why we're getting the cooperation.
Well, whatever it is, it's a good change, and I'm just wide open to it, because, you know, just partnering with them can just improve everything. That's one of the silver linings to, COVID-19, is all this online webinars we've been doing. We've got collectively so many minds coming into the fray, and we're getting some great ideas from people, so there are some good things that are coming out.
Anything else with regard to the ratifications in front of us? What is the board's pleasure with regard to this ratification of a seasonal laborer?
I'll make a motion to ratify the appointment of Brandon Schwarzer for status as a seasonal laborer for the highway department.
I have a motion by Joe.
And I didn't see a starting date.
July 13th.
Okay, there, or I should put my glasses on, with a starting date of July 13th, 2020.
A motion by Joe. Second by Jim. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? That is unanimous.
Madam Chair, if I may, I just want to thank, Robert, if you noticed his shirt this evening.
I did notice his shirt.
He did that under his own volition, so I thank him today. Everyone knows my proclivity for professionalism and uniformity. So I want to thank Robert for doing that. For Blaisdell, you'll see Mark has, a lot of these guys are doing this with their own time, so I want to thank Robert for.
Well, thank you. The only thing I have to admit, and we're not on TV, but I tried desperately to get a haircut tonight. But I haven't had one in over a month and a half, so a good thing.
It's okay.
How are you feeling?
Thank you, Robert.
I
Appreciate it.
won't apply the grooming standards to you, Robert, you're okay with that.
I think we're all okay. I think we're. So that will bring us to a reopening update. I believe Mr. Blaisdell is here. So Robert, I'm going to ask you to step out into the hallway. That keeps us at 10. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
If you could provide the board, oh, did I leave any wires? I'm sorry.
No,
I'm trying not to hurt anybody. I already took Chief Bacon out with some wires, it's okay. If you could provide the board with a reopening, I know that there's been a number of changes. We're now into phase 3, step 1, and maybe what that means for some of our businesses and parks, and I'll turn it over to you.
So with the change of phase, there actually hasn't been much
Okay.
change. As far as the businesses that have applied for the outside dining, we had approved one more since I was here last. So out of the 9, all were approved except for one.
Tell us, Gotham, Mark.
But the additional, yes.
Okay.
And they are
Great.
So the one significant thing that changed with phase 3 was the allowance for entertainment. So their first weekend, last weekend, they had a jazz ensemble planned, but they had to suspend that. So that was allowed as of Monday.
Okay.
So, as far as the athletic fields, 4 organizations applied, and I approved those the very same day. And there are some allowances with phase 3. Those organizations can have games. The only provision there with the allowance for games is that it cannot be spectators. On Monday, I did email all the organizers for those athletic events, all the changes. So they're familiar with those. As far as other businesses, with the tattoo shop, they moved over to Summer Street. They're operating. Tanning salon, they had a delayed opening. They're not open yet because they have an equipment failure.
Okay.
Rainbow Shack, she's allowed to open, she's just choosing not to yet.
Okay.
Mr. Dingling, he's in operation. We had a restaurant on Commercial Street closed. We've got another facilitator going in there, soon. The tobacco shop does not appear to be reopening the vape and smoke shop.
Okay.
We had ordered them closed, if they wanted to reopen, but it looks like they removed all their inventory and surrendered the key to the property owner. So it doesn't look like they're reopening. So chances are, in August, we'll lose that permit for good. In the works, we have a possible bakery going in on Summer Street, possible convenience store going in on Flutic Street, restaurant possibly opening on Park Street, and a fitness center with a juice bar possibly opening on Park Street. So those are all in the works.
Any questions for Mark about reopening or any of the businesses? And I just wanted to add with Bascom Lodge, their temporary liquor license for outdoor went through the licensing subcommittee. It was approved by the licensing subcommittee per the process that was established by this board, and then all members of the board signed it before this evening's meeting. So that will be also in effect for them.
Chair, I have a question in regards to the 9 approved outdoor restaurant seating. What are the, so all 9 of those have food permits, right, for the state guidelines?
So just to clarify, 9 applied, 8 were approved.
8, okay. And they all have food permits?
Yes.
So what's the rule? If someone, let's say you're at a restaurant, they serve food, and then you're outside and you have a drink and you don't get your food for after, let's say it's 20 minutes, then after your meal is complete, you know, finish your drink for another 20 minutes. Is there any guidelines on how long you can sit outside and drink alcohol? Or I know it's difficult, but these questions have been raised. So I just want to bring it forward to the
The answer
experts.
is no. The only requirement is that in order for them to partake in a liquor, alcoholic beverage, is for them to have food service.
What does food service mean?
There's no definition. So the consensus is if they want pretzels and popcorn, that's not food. A hot dog will satisfy food. Nachos will satisfy food.
Okay.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, you have to be certified to pass liquor out. Like, can someone, I'll just use this for an example, like the Daily Grind, no, they don't serve alcohol there. A place that serves alcohol, you have to have some type of a certification. And are all the people that have these liquor license, the people within there that are doing liquor sales, do they have the needed certification? I forget what is it called? Tips. Yeah, that's what I thought it was. Yeah.
Which is a requirement of their license
Right.
to be renewed.
I forgot the name.
So it is a requirement.
That is a requirement.
Okay, so they're all set with that, each one that has been,
All of those are,
okay, yeah,
and all of those establishments that have food service, they also have to be credentialed, and they have those proper credentials.
okay. And, I was happy to hear that Bascom Lodge is open, having worked there for many years. What do they have for the amount of people that can be in there at one time? Because on a busy weekend, I mean, people are, you know, coming in and out, and there's, you know, that place is totally full. I mean, there's no distancing possibilities if there's not a quota, the number of people that can go in at one time.
Well, there are, at the time, on Monday, they increased the limit, to 25.
Yeah.
So long as you have, you can have 8 per 1,000 square feet, but you also remember, that that's also lodge, okay? And there's outside seating as well, okay? So they'll try to, every establishment that has the outside seating is gonna try to set up their outside before the allowance of the inside.
Yeah, okay, as long as,
The tables were distance appropriate. Yeah. If they want to put them tighter, there's a requirement for a impervious partition between all of them, they're all aware of that. Yep. Okay. I'm just happy to see that they were open. I wasn't sure that they were open. Some just small, short. You haven't seen it before.
Anything else for Mark about the reopening? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you have something? Oh,
I
you
just
want to
want to thank Mark and Jerry for all of their efforts. As you can see, we're, as a municipality, we're looking at things that we normally don't look at. For example, with entertainment, these things are now so drilled down into the weeds that if you have a live entertainment that involves the use of woodwind instruments, the regulation is different than if you're using a stringed instrument. Just to set the stage, the state is putting these together, sending them down to the municipalities, and we're being asked to regulate and enforce items that we typically don't. It is a very difficult situation, and I'd like to thank Mark and Jerry, who are doing their best to swim in waters that we normally don't ask them to swim in.
And if I could add, so the public was told last week that we're going to implement phase 3 Monday. We didn't get notified officially with all the guidance until the afternoon of Monday, and that's where we learned that there's different steps of phase 3. So, gathering that data, because you have to retrieve it. They don't give it to you. So we have to retrieve it and then deal with all the phone calls and emails that we got throughout the course of the day. And then get information out to the organizers and the restaurant food.
having an announcement, the afternoon of a holiday, before a holiday weekend, stating that everything would be open Monday morning is necessary. So I completely understand, and I spent a lot of time Thursday afternoon trying to find those guidelines as well, because they didn't post them immediately after the press conference. They actually waited much longer.
Right.
This time.
It was after Thursday.
Yep. So I appreciate the quick turnaround on all of that, because I'm sure everyone will be open at 8:01 a.m. on Monday.
In many ways, the state of Massachusetts reopening plan is working well, that and help that. On the flip side, the phased reopening from a health perspective works well, but from the business perspective or the regulatory perspective, it's challenging. And one of the things that we talked about first thing this morning, I popped in to see the inspectional guys, which I try to do daily anyway, is for any business that wants to offer entertainment, the best advice we can give them, please call Mark, set up an appointment, have them speak to Mark about what it is that they want to do, and go from there. It might be very simply saying, you're good to go like this, or there may have to be a conversation. Mark just needs to know what the proposed entertainment is, and if he can apply the guidelines. Some establishments have been very good. They look it up ahead of time, and they just do it. But at the same time, that if they reach out and speak with Mark up front, it puts Mark into a spot of being able to say, I'm aware of it, I've approved it, they're good to go. Because unfortunately, as I said before, you have a proactive enforcement model. This has been a reactive enforcement model since day one. We do not have the enforcement team or the authority on some levels to go in unless we receive a complaint. So we're constantly reactive to both. When the state says you can reopen, we have to react, and then we have to react if there's some not. And we have been getting, not a lot, but we have been getting some feedback from a few businesses that are starting to slow a little bit, but Mark pays a visit. It's challenging, and I thank Mark for his time. And of course, Mark has opted for the colored town seal on his shirt.
I feel like this is a fashion show all of a sudden. All right.
The selectmen should get dunce hats.
No, but
Yeah.
we could get shirts with the town seal as well. Pay out of pocket, that's good. You'll have to let us know.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
question to the, town administrator in regards to the, opening of the, town hall or city halls. What's the plan for that?
The staff would request that we do not open to the public. That is the general consensus that most communities, in order to open to the public and allow the public in the building, we have to ramp up all of our cleaning and sanitation, which has a cost associated with it. We have not received a lot of feedback from the community in terms of not being able to meet with, show up at town hall. However, at this point in phase 3, Robert has implemented a sign-in sheet. Every office is equipped with sanitizer, and if a member of the public needs to schedule an appointment and meet face-to-face, that is an option. You just cannot walk into town hall unannounced and walk in the building. So if you really need to meet with somebody face-to-face, they can do that. We're taking that month to month and looking at the health data. And that's consistent with other communities.
So what can we do for the governor's, direction? Can we fully open?
We should.
Okay, so,
40, is it 40%? Or 40%?
8%.
so, understandably, the employees, are concerned, as they should be. But isn't that a board's decision to, to get the information, inputs, and determine when the town hall should reopen? As I am, but this could go on for 9 months to a year. So when do we move to the next step?
We may not.
We may not, but that's really a board's decision, I would imagine. We can talk about that in the future, but, I understand the concern, but I think there also needs to be a discussion on the board of selectmen with your inputs to determine, should we reopen it? Do we hear the inputs from the employees and we agree, then that's fine. But I think we need to it's time when we can open, but the board hasn't had any discussion, about that. So I think at some point we should.
If you would like to have a further discussion about whether or not we open up town hall, we can do that next Wednesday.
Yeah,
But it's my understanding that it's still under the purview of the town administrator with regard to the facility.
Okay,
We can have the conversation. I'll do whatever the board wants to do, but I think allowing the public into this building or to the visitor center or to the library at this time comes with some level of risk. And if that's a decision that we want to offer that service, open it up, I think we need DPW's input and code enforcement officers' input in terms of what the protocols are. So like for now, if you make an appointment to come into the building as a member of the public, you have to sign in the login sheet. And that's required by regulation because we need to know if you've been here for tracing. Thanks, Joe. And at the same time, we require the individual to wear the mask until they're settled into the office and the person is we also still can call, they can do that, but that's what we've been doing in terms of visitors inside the building. The visitor center, right now is only limited towards council on aging by appointment only. It kind of helps us if the trail is closed, so we don't have a full demand on there. But for example, Erica has asked for the tent to be erected, but in order to have the tent, to have services under the tent, you meet the health requirements, but the bathrooms have to be accessible. So just allowing, say 15 or 20 people under the tent to offer yoga or offer some of those services, that building has to be open. So she's finding out a way to only limit the building open for COA users, and then we have to make sure we meet the sanitation requirements. Everything that we do has a reaction back in terms of what the state says. So we've eased ourselves into it, little by little, but I'm happy to put that on the agenda, have the conversation. We'll make sure Robert's here and Mark is here, and to make sure we get all the facts out and decide what we want to do. Not a problem at all.
and I just think the conversation needs to be had, and I expect nothing less from you to provide us and to also fight, what you believe in and what you think is right, and that's what we expect from you. So I just think the conversation needs to be, discussed for all, for Library, a lot of questions, I don't know, when's the library gonna open? I know they're starting to work with people to lead folks, you know, they're starting a process there that I've heard. So I just think if we get the full story. And, Attorney St. John, are you still on the line?
I am.
Ed, could you just, look into, who has the authority to, reopen the town hall? You don't have to answer tonight, just, if you could just research that for me.
Will do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So that brings us to recruitment notices. At, I think, our last meeting, we did a number of appointments. It was our annual appointment meeting. There was a notice that we have a number of vacancies with the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Parks Commission. Parks Commission, there are 2 seats available. Those are elected positions typically, but we had 1 resignation after the election, and we didn't have anybody run for the other seats at the election. It's my understanding we do have 2 applications in. So what's in front of you are the recruitment notices that have gone out for both of these positions. We do have some applications in hand for Parks Commissioners, so those will come forward at another meeting, because I just actually received them today. And then for the ZBA, I believe that we have 3 positions that are available, 1 full position and I think 2 alternates, or I have that mixed up. But we do have a number of those. So the recruitment notice that was written for the Zoning Board of Appeals came out of Community Development. The Parks Commissioner recruitment notice came out of DPW office and Parks. So I just wanted to make sure that you were all aware that these had been posted. The other position that has been posted, so I didn't put it on the agenda, I apologize, but was working with the town clerk. If you all might remember, at last town meeting, we moved to have the fence viewer and measurer of wood and bark moved from a town meeting appointment to a Board of Selectmen appointment. It did not make it onto the annual appointments list, and was something that I remembered after the fact. Town clerk has reached out to the measurer of wood and bark, who is Walt Slozik, for a number of years. She's reached out, hasn't heard anything back from Walt yet, but she's also on vacation this week, or out of the office anyway. So she's waiting to hear. And then if Walt turns that down, then we would post that position. We currently do not have a fence viewer. Typically we have 2, but we do not have that at all. So the town clerk did post a fence viewer position, and that has been posted, and I can send that to all of you. That probably will have to be extended. I think Haley had that posted till the end of this week. I'm not sure if she got any applications, so that might have to be reposted. But those are 2 positions. I apologize that I didn't catch it sooner, but luckily caught it in July.
No application?
No application, no. So just wanted to make you all aware of what's going on with recruitment.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Sure.
The board appoints the zoning board. Now, the Parks Commission is an advisory group to the Board of Selectmen. It's an elected position, where it doesn't state that the board has the authority to appoint unoccupied elected positions for the Parks Commission.
So
Is it in the charter?
It is. So this would be similar to what we did with the Board of Health and what we did with the McCann rep position that we appointed last fall. So the positions we would appoint for a 1-year term. They would have to run for re-election at the next town election. So they don't fill out a term. They are just filling in for a year.
Okay, thank you.
And then they would have to go through the election process, yes.
I was talking to an individual the other day, and they're saying that they're going to the finance committee. You know anything about this?
They're going to the, I don't know,
They're
gonna be appointed to the finance committee?
Oh, yes, they, right now, they're in the housing
Okay,
authority,
okay.
and they said that they're gonna jump over to the finance committee.
The appointments to the finance committee are made by the town moderator.
Okay.
That is not an appointment by us.
Okay.
But we do
I
get-
realize that.
Yeah, but we do get notified when the town moderator, appoints,
Okay.
Just a little few vacancies on finance.
yes.
The person that I talked to should do a great job, so.
That's good. I know that our town moderator's been looking for some people to fill.
She's a heavy recruiter.
She really is. That's good. Okay. We'll move on to department reports. Town administrator.
Thank you. Just, very briefly, the capital improvement plan for the wastewater treatment plant is still underway. We received a fairly thick document from our engineering firm, Ty and Bond. Myself, Mr. Tober, Mr. Rumble will be meeting with them tomorrow morning to get an update on that and what the next steps are. So I would anticipate a report on that sometime, maybe by the end of the month, in terms of what our next steps are. The Town Common Rehabilitation Project has been awarded to William J. Keller Construction, I believe, of Castleton, New York. That bid came in at $256,000. I'm pleased to report that finally the bidding has turned in favor of municipal projects, and we have some breathing room in these numbers. So those contracts were signed this week. As you know, tonight on the agenda, we've finally been able to complete and solidify the police officers' union contract. For informational purposes, I reached out to our clerical union today. We're going to resume those negotiations next week and try to get that completed as well. We have no state aid numbers yet from the state. Not unlike municipalities, the state has authorized a continuing appropriation at the state level. All of the, any owed funds to the municipalities from the state are at the fiscal 20 level, and we understand that those numbers have been authorized. So we are still in a holding pattern in terms of waiting to find out what our state aid numbers will be, and that also includes everything else on that famous cherry sheet, including Chapter 70, the school aid number. So at some point, I believe they're going into recess, perhaps, I think at the end of July, or that might have been the federal government, not sure which. At any rate, we may have to make a decision. We can get a sense from the legislative delegation when they may have a budget. If they don't, we may have to make a best guess for fiscal 21 to move ahead. Other communities are looking at August for a town meeting. In my mind, I had a drop dead date of late September. We didn't really want to go longer than September to do it. That's flexible, input from the board, how you folks feel, but that's kind of where we are. The next decision we have to make next. If we don't get that number from the state, and we don't think the state will pass a budget with a hard cherry sheet, then we may have to look and command ourselves and do it. So that's kind of where we are with there. We just need to firm up for the accounting office what our meeting schedule is and what date we need to have in front of you the August 1/12 budget.
The town accountant asked for July 22nd to bring that forward.
Okay.
And it's my understanding that we have a quorum, for July 15th and July 22nd. We're to have those meetings, as I had asked all of the board members, and I do have a quorum.
Great. So that's kind of where we are with finances. We did implement, for lack of a better term, spending freeze. It's somewhat informal, but essentially I've asked every department head, before you look to spend anything, just have a very brief conversation with Mary and I, and so we know, what's going out the door. We're not in dire cash, it's mostly an accounting issue. We just want to be sure that we know where the money's being spent. That's where we are financially.
Any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
As far as town meeting, don't we have to coordinate this with Chester somewhat because of the school budget? I mean, it's kind of tough to go forward at town meeting without.
Well, in a perfect world, yes, for the school budget. I just had the conversation with Town Administrator St. John down there. They are looking at August but they too, that's a floating date. And we're due to meet with the superintendent of the district just to catch up, sometime soon, see what they know. The Chapter 70 number, in theory, should come out at the same time as the state aid number. So they will have their financial figures, the district will have their financial figures at the same time as the two municipalities. And to the finance committee's point, one of the feedback from the finance committee was they felt uncomfortable moving ahead with a budget, primarily because of that school district budget, which is, as we all know, is our #1 expenditure from a budgetary standpoint. So I think if that's still the situation where we don't know what that figure is, there may be a collective decision to say, let's still not move ahead. I don't think there's any restriction on going month to month to month, but as I said before, at some point, we're not going to be able to do certain things without a formal budget. We still have 40R to contend with on a town meeting warrant. We still have the zoning changes on Commercial Street area that still need to be addressed by town meeting. And we still have some annual authorizations that town meeting approves, the revolving funds, et cetera. And you'll see tonight, there's one issue in the police union contract that requires authorization from town meeting to create an account. They're just accounting, housekeeping matters, but by law, we can't do that until town meeting meets. So at some point, we're gonna have that conversation.
So we could have a town meeting without school budget.
In theory, yes, but like anything else, it's practical to do it.
Yeah, and just like, also, what Jim has been alluding to, the start of school isn't too far off, and, some decisions are gonna have to be made, and I don't know, today I was kind of a little bit upset from a tweet by our president kind of saying, if the schools don't open, whole hog, I'm gonna cut money from, the public school systems and things. So everything pretty much is in such turmoil that I think that you really need to, stay right on this with Aaron Dean and Jim Brosnan and Bart Charter School. I know my brother-in-law is the principal at St. Stanton. Of course, they're go through different channels. They've gotten the okay to open, but they have a small school, so they can do all the parameters needed to open. So, they're ready to go, but, this is kind of, there's a lot riding with the kids, and not just with the children, the parents have to know, so regarding their work needs, their daycare needs and things, so, I don't know, somebody's gotta get off the pot pretty quick at some level, state or federal, and start passing on some workable guidelines for people.
The other factor we're still looking at the federal level is whether or not the CARES Act authorization, if those funds can be used for revenue replacement. So for example, we received $2.5 million in state aid. If that's a 10% reduction, we have to eliminate $250,000 out of the budget. But we have been authorized under the CARES Act to submit reimbursements for up to $712. Now, I think, don't quote me, but I think we submitted probably a little over $100,000 in anticipated and COVID-19 related expenses under fiscal 20. If the federal government changed the regulations on being able to access that money for revenue replacement, we could, in theory, know that that's the amount of money that we need, and we could move forward on a fiscal 20. So that's the other key at the federal level that we're also waiting on too. And I'm now at the point where I think I'm just gonna start to reach out, and I've been waiting long enough. I think now I'm just gonna pick up the phone and say, what is the movement on that?
Yeah.
Because it would free us up, would make me feel more comfortable to move ahead. Because that's really the issue that we have, is we just still don't know how much to take out of that budget. Our receipts are good, our receipts have been budgeted conservatively, but we still don't know what that state aid number is gonna look like, and we depend on that, like any other municipality. And I also noticed too that some of the smaller municipalities that did move ahead, as one of the town managers explained to me this week, and it made a lot of sense to me, they don't rely on state aid as heavily as, say, North Adams, Pittsfield, or Adams does. So that's how they've been able to move ahead, because they just adjust themselves accordingly by their receipts. But for our community, we do rely on that, so it does have a significant impact.
Thank you.
we were talking about the schools, I'll just mention it now instead of, later in the agenda. We did get a copy of the authorization, for both Hoosick Valley Regional School District and the Northern Berkshire Regional Vocational Technical School District, to move forward with their 1/12 budget. So they do have that, and it says that they can go forward with the 1/12 budget, and the amount has been approved per month, until the district's fiscal 21 budget has been adopted or until December 1st, 2020. So that is what both of those school districts have been told, so I will, give those to Deb so that they can be filed. Any other questions?
Yeah, as far as those, two,
Yeah.
papers that you were just holding, who was the signee of, that?
The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education
Is it Taser? Is that,
is Jay Sullivan, Associate
Okay.
Commissioner, School Finance and District
okay,
Board.
yeah.
So did they indicate the amount that was approved?
Yes, the amount, for Hoosick Valley Regional School District, to continue its operations is that they are authorized to spend up to $1,674,957 each month. And for Northern Berkshire Regional Vocational Technical School District, they, have been authorized to continue its operations and to spend up to $799,987 a month.
So I know Debbie, which you just mentioned, approves these amounts, of 1.6 million. Probably won't have the answer today, but, so that's most likely the amount that was spent.
It is 1/12
1/12
of the regional school district's budget for the prior fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
And it does state that here.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome. And so this letter for Hoosick Valley went to Cheshire as well, and Northern Berkshire Regional Vocational, went to all of the, city council and the select boards of the Northern Berkshire community.
And I will find out from Superintendent Dean if our assessment that's due in September is based on those numbers. Because that was the other question that we had in there, so I have, now that we have these numbers,
Yeah, and, just going with what Joe requested before, is that as soon as the superintendent has, decided on a plan to move forward with the fall, and talks to his, school board, that if you or if we can invite him to come to this meeting, to hear what the plan is for the fall, for the school.
I think we should add him on the agenda when he's ready. I think we should also have, Madam Chair, if I just take a moment before it leaves my mind, Director Jaco from the library, Director Trigenti, have them come at the next available meeting, just, report out on their respective buildings, programming, et cetera, particularly at a publicized meeting.
Okay.
Before I lose that thought. And I think it would be great to hear from Superintendent Dean. I know he's always willing to come.
We're gonna have to have them all in different rooms.
We can handle it.
Okay. Anything else for the town administrator?
All I have.
Okay. Ed, would you like to give a town council report? And everyone does have a printout of what you sent earlier today.
All right, thank you. I want to, first of all, welcome Chief Bacon, and I look forward to working with him on his arrival in Adams. As far as my report, I assisted the town clerk in responding to a request for public records. I responded to a request made by a citizen for executive session minutes. I reviewed and signed contracts for construction services and for the visiting nurse. I attended the Board of Health meeting of July 1, 2020. During that meeting, I advised the board concerning a pending open meeting law complaint and provided the board with a summary of the complaint and my response to the complaint. The response was thereafter sent to the complainant and to the Attorney General's office. I also advised the board about voting on minutes and adding last-minute agenda items without proper posting, and of strategies to avoid open meeting law complaints. Lastly, we had a discussion concerning the protocol for handling hearings and appeals of enforcement orders. I provided the Attorney General's office and the complainant with my response to the open meeting law complaint. I reviewed the interim chief's proposed contract And I responded to a request by a citizen for a copy of the recording for the July 1 Board of Health meeting.
Thank you, Ed. Any questions for town council? Okay. Hearing none. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice to see you. Thanks for being on video.
You as well.
All right, so that brings us to subcommittee and liaison reports. I'll start over on the right. Joe, anything?
I have nothing.
Jim?
Food distribution on Tuesdays at the Council on Aging remains very busy. We're serving up almost 300 people. The next one will be this coming Tuesday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. I want to thank everybody for taking the time and volunteering and helping out with this. Local waste collection went great. It was a very busy day. It's unbelievable. It's just, can't believe it came in there. I want to thank all the volunteers for that also. There was quite a few up there. And lastly, banners for fallen heroes are being printed as we speak. They should be ready for hanging, I'm hoping within the next week. So we're just waiting for Jamie Callahan to get back to us about the hangers and the cost for them hanging them. And again, I want to thank the committee because they were a hard-working committee. That was a long project that we undertook, and it turned out going to be successful. I'm really pleased. That's all I have.
John?
I have nothing.
Okay. Announcements and good of the order? Joe?
Just a few things. I stepped into Jay's office and I requested that for Kelly to come, Kelly Rice, to our next meeting. Since tax collection is over, I was interested to see how we did, because we did it in a different way by extending it. And I wanted just to see how that worked out and how our tax collections went. I'm still kind of waiting to get the person who would represent the auditing company that did the audit for our. Have you or anyone been in contact with those individuals?
I contacted the town accountant, who told me that the audit was finalized beginning of April.
Okay.
With COVID, that's why the auditor wasn't able to be here, and that she would reach out and try to schedule that accordingly.
Very good.
But I am working with Mary Beth Ellie on that.
And lastly, I brought this to Mark Blaisdell's attention. There's another sign hanging for a tag sale. There's two of them on Randall Street, and I just believe it's important that they be taken down before you get a snowball effect by people saying, well, if there could be a tag sale there, why can't I have one there? So I think if people aren't doing it maliciously. I just don't think that they know that we said that there's not to be any tag sales in the town of Adams, and that's all I have.
So, with regard to a presentation by Kelly, if I move that to July 22nd, would that be okay? The July 15th agenda is getting pretty full. I know that you had requested to do a presentation.
Yeah.
As
That would be
well.
fine with me, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that that's still
No, that's fine.
fine. Okay, thank you. Jim?
I have nothing.
John?
Just like to mention that, coming through Park Street, that the flowers look fantastic, and thank whoever's, involved in volunteering their time to do that. I think they're doing a great job, and it really, it's appreciated. It really spruces up the, main street in town.
Thank you for saying that. I think you received,
That's DPW, that's Mr. Scrappy. Steve is out there pruning and watering.
okay.
That's our second compliment, I think.
I was gonna say, I know you got a note from somebody in North Adams about the flowers, so that's nice to hear. So next on the agenda is an executive session. I put this on there in case there was any member of the board who wished to go into executive session to answer any final questions in regard to the contract. I know that you've all had, some time with it. So if there's not a need for the executive session, we can move on to contract approval, but I will open it up to the board to see if anyone wishes to go into executive session.
I'd have to say that I read the contract and it was, I guess you used the term once, pretty much generic for, you know, a contract of that type. I didn't see anything that was seen too much or too little or unfair or fair, so I took a look at it and I don't believe I need to go in executive session.
Okay, and I'm not hearing that the other members do either, so we'll move on to the contract approval. So it's nice to have the interim police chief here for this conversation. I appreciate Officer Baker and his time being here as he's the union leader, steward, president. And so he's here to also answer any questions, but I will turn things over. I will have an opportunity for Officer Baker to say a few words. But we did have a member of our board who served on the negotiations team along with our town administrator. I asked Member Blanchard if he had anything he wanted me to share with the board prior to the discussion on the contract, and he asked me to read the following. He stated he regrets not being able to be in attendance tonight to welcome Chief Bacon to town. And he also regrets not being here to vote for the contract now before the board. He believes the whole process went very well until the interruption with COVID-19. The end result now before you, Rick believes, is beneficial to the police union, the town, and the taxpayers we all serve. As a side note, Rick would like the union to know that with the relaxing of some of the COVID-19 regulations and Chief Bacon now on board, that he also would like to have the Public Safety Subcommittee meet as soon as possible with them to discuss the non-contract issues that were brought up during the negotiations. So that is signed by Member Blanchard, and he wanted to make sure that I shared that with all of you. I will turn things over to Town Administrator, and also I'd like to give Officer Baker time to speak as well.
Just very quickly, as Joe indicated, what we did with this is frankly update most of the compensation section of the contract. It's consistent with other communities, and it's consistent with most of the collective bargaining agreements with police departments in the Berkshires. There's one section, G, that deals with the detective salary, detective compensation. We had to do that specifically. Holidays, we've been offering call-in pay for years, but it wasn't in the agreement, so Mary, to her credit, I caught a few things. We tried to freshen up some sections as well. The educational licensing, there's just some language change there. Most of the work was done in the special detail police work section. And what I referenced before was the need to create a revolving fund. I'd like to thank the union for bringing this to the town's attention because frankly, we were leaving money on the table as a municipality. As you know, the majority of the time where you see a detail officer working, that detail is paid not by the town or by taxpayers. That is paid by a third party, whether that be a utility company or a construction firm. What other communities do is be able to charge a surcharge on that, 10% surcharge. And with that, that money goes into a revolving account that the town is able to use to administer that revolving fund because right now, the union actually processes all that work themselves. So although the town wasn't going to take all the work away from the union, one of the individuals doing the work for the union is our detective, who, in my opinion, time is far better spent investigating crime here in the town of Adams. So we had a really good conversation about the procedure. It cleans up a lot of language and makes it consistent with other communities and how our officers are compensated on detail rate. That's the only reason why that section is that long, is because it needed to address all of that. And again, this process, I don't do anything in a vacuum. Once we were done with bargaining and negotiating on our own, our team was myself, Mary, and Member Blanchard. It was Officer Baker, Detective Wandrai, and Officer Honorado from the police union. We had some really good conversation. I think, Josh, it was what, 3 meetings I think we had? 3 or 4. And we were able to put this together. So I thank Josh and his team for their level of professionalism and understanding the town and taxpayers' concerns. Once all of this was done, we had our labor council review this for consistency and for legality. And as I said in a previous, communication, there was one section that you saw at our last executive session, which was the academy rate of pay for a non-academy trained officer to attend the Mass Municipal Academy. We were gonna pay them at a 5% less rate. Under the law, we can't do that. So once again, that's why we have these reviewed by, legal counsel at the end of it, just to make sure we're in step. We are, and, we're ready to go. Turn it over to Josh, if there's any comments or anything else Josh wants to say on behalf of the union. There is a cover letter that Josh sent just, early this week, indicating that what the vote was. And the second paragraph on there, I should explain in case anyone's curious. In the last go-round of the collective bargaining agreement, there was a
You're the only
provision.
one with the cover letter, we don't have it.
Sorry,
You might,
I believe this was all at your, is this at your?
no, it's not.
Okay. I'll let Josh, if you want to read it, it's your letter, if you want to read it.
You would like me to?
Sure. There was one paragraph in here that explains it, I'll explain what,
Thank you. Sorry to cut you off.
The local has reviewed the language of the most recent memorandum of understanding titled Mascot Local 367 Final Draft. Local agrees to the terms and conditions set forth in the agreement, and they're consistent and accurate with those we agreed to during our collective bargaining sessions. This agreement was voted on at a recent union meeting. The local voted unanimously in favor of the new agreement. Additionally, the local agreed to the town's proposal to accept a one-time $1,700 payout for the union to purchase physical fitness equipment in lieu of paying each officer for the physical fitness bonus they would have been eligible for, but were not, due to the test not being provided.
So as an example, in case anyone's wondering where that $1,700 comes from, that's from the Berkshire Health Group allotment that we get, so that is not an impact, for the taxpayer at all. As with anything, the union came to us and said, we're happy to get rid of this very cumbersome physical fitness. It was an incentive program in order to get the officers to perform at a certain level, very cumbersome to execute, and the union was very happy to give it up, but as with everything with bargaining, we had a couple of options, and we thought this was the best option, rather than just pay out to each individual officer, which I felt was going to unfairly reward somebody who may not have met those requirements. This way here, it's a better investment with every officer who has the opportunity to use that gymnasium at the police station. So I thank Josh and the members of Mass Cops Local 367, our police officers, for their willingness to work with us.
Thank you.
I just have a question. I want to thank Jay for getting that information to me about our new interim chief, about being accredited, and could you explain to the other board members how it works and when they're going to be meeting and so on?
Yes, thank you. So the Massachusetts Police Training Committee, they do meet monthly. They have 11 voting members. The 11 voting members are currently sitting police chiefs across the Commonwealth. When a representative of the municipality steps forward and says, I'd like to bring a lateral officer on who's accredited or certified in another state, this includes chief or even other command level positions, the MPTC says we want to take a look. You can ask for a waiver, but in this situation, we're looking for an exemption, which is a normal process. We have to fill out a very simple form. That form will include all of Chief Bacon's credentials from the state of Indiana. A cover letter from me explaining from the town's perspective why we're seeking the exemption, very straightforward. That goes to a subcommittee sometime soon. The subcommittee will make a recommendation to the full committee, and they vote, and then they add the parameters at that time in terms of what it is that Chief Bacon may have to do to become certified in Massachusetts. I spoke with Chief Tarsa and Chief Bacon together. We think we have a pretty good idea of what it is that the MPTC is going to ask. Chief Bacon is in touch with the MPTC as needed, as am I. Knock on wood, we should have this, we should have our path forward by the end of July. I had a very good conversation with a representative of the MPTC, and they were very impressed with Chief Bacon and his credentials. So that's where we are.
And I'd just like to add, if I remember correctly, the upcoming meeting would be July 22nd.
Correct. Yeah. Which is an open public meeting.
So I want to bring us back to the agenda item. It's the contract approval in front of us. Officer Baker, was there anything else you wanted to?
Just say thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate an hour and a half of your time this evening.
It's good that uniform, so it's fine, you should wear it more often.
That was recorded, so it's good. All right. So what is the board's pleasure with regard to the contract, if there isn't any other discussion, questions, or comments?
May I just ask what contract are we alluding to?
It is the Massachusetts Coalition of Police.
Okay, so that is for the police union,
Yeah.
not,
We already approved that.
yes, we did, okay.
Yep. So the contract was
Make a motion that we accept the, police contract as written.
for the Massachusetts Coalition of Police,
Coalition of Police.
Local 367,
Right.
for the,
367, and it would be from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2023.
And you're ratifying the contract. That's your ratifying.
Okay.
have a motion by Jim.
Yeah, and just one quick question,
Sure.
since, it was July 1st, how is it going to be prorated from, not having it signed, because now it's July 8th, and so, how does that,
It's just retroactive.
that retroactive, okay?
I have a motion by Jim to ratify the police union contract.
I'll second.
Second by John. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed or an abstention? That is unanimous.
Thank you.
You have
Thank you.
yourself a contract for the next 3 years.
Stress level just went down for like 3 years.
Excellent, well, very good. Happy we could help. All right. If there isn't anything else to come before the board, I will go ahead and ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you
Yep,
very much.
good night.
We do have a
Stay in
meeting
touch.
next week. It'll be July 15th. It'll be at 7 PM. It will be a regular televised meeting. Okay? Thank you, Ed.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
You too.
Thanks.